Sure. So molweni ke bethu nana, whoever's out there, greetings. I hope you're right. I hope you're not feeling under the weather. This is AV, your host, and this is Disturbing the Peace. So let's get right into it. I was a bit indecisive about what topic I wanted to tackle next, but I finally settled on one. And the reason behind the topic is it's basically a living, breathing example of why democracy does not work for African nations. Maybe one of these days I might do an in-depth analysis of the issues that democracy comes with for us as African nations, but basically let's take a look at our president, his decision making and the outcome of those decisions, starting with COVID. Yeah, the hot potato that was dropped on his lap randomly. So once upon a time, there were rumors of a pandemic disease, airborne virus that was coming. No one knew anything. No one had any information. And our president had basically one decision. Just one decision. Close the country or keep it open. And our president, in a spectacular fuck up, decided to keep domestic and international trade open, international travel open. Basically opened the borders for everyone traveling in and out of South Africa. We all know the outcome. Every one of us got a piece of that breadless shit sandwich. And we saw what happened. Many of us lost loved ones, businesses closed down, our freedoms were basically taken away. We were in a lockdown. Speaking of lockdown, what happened next? He decided to institute a lockdown. Good idea, perfect response. Here is where I was a bit worried. Here is where I was concerned. When the army and the army general got involved. So here's a fun fact for those of you that do not know out there. The number one reason for regime change in Africa, just next to democracy, just next to like democratic elections, coup. Yep, a coup d'etat. That's when the army general most cases, it's the army general. The general and his army come in and basically tell the president, yeah, it's okay, you can log off. Log out, we'll take care of the rest, it's fine. So we dodged that bullet, thankfully. But then came the aid, the relief aid for those that were struggling under lockdown conditions. 350. Yeah, we all know what 350 is. I'm not going to explain 350. As is common with the South African government, they throw money at problems. No strategy, no planning, just throwing money at it. They basically said if you are unemployed and struggling during the lockdown, here's 350 rands in your pocket. I'd love to find out how many unemployed people didn't receive that 350. Because I can guarantee you there was a whole lot of corruption happening around that. There still is, because it's still ongoing. A lot of us are sitting at home, not receiving that 350, and unemployed. Instead of making it a voucher, slash money situation where people could actually redeem food items with a voucher and have a little bit of money to take care of other things that need taken care of, just maybe to dissuade his crony friends. The president decided, money, let's throw money at it. And then there's the APW shit show. Yeah, I'm not gonna even get into that one. But anyway, COVID came and miraculously went. Like it never happened, just vanished. And that was the end of it. And then what happened next is Russia went to war with Ukraine. That was a fun development. So Russia goes to war with Ukraine. To our president's credit, he was quiet as a mouse. I would be willing to applaud him for that, except for the fact that his political friends basically were inserting themselves in a situation they had no business speaking on. No business whatsoever. Let's review. Russia is an ally to South Africa. BRICS. Need I say more? So when you criticize your ally for a war that you have not even taken the time to understand, that's a problem. Because for anyone with eyes, a brain, and an analytical mind, the war was clearly a NATO war against Russia. NATO was trying to invade Russia. And that didn't work out well for Ukraine. In case you haven't put it together, NATO basically is America. NATO is basically America. So America kept sending weapons to Ukraine and stepping aside. Meanwhile, South Africa was running its mouth about things we have no business speaking on, antagonizing an ally. Okay, fine. What happened next? There was a war in Congo. Was it Congo? I think it was DRC Congo. Once again, why? Why were we there? Why were we sacrificing South African lives to a war that has nothing to do with us? No benefit to us at all. Because think about it. If the Congolese government won the war, we'd have an enemy in the form of the neighbor who kept speaking out to South Africa, stay out of it. If the Congolese government lost, we'd have an enemy in the form of the same nation and the newly elected rebel government and any countries that wished to ally themselves with that government, including the allies of the country that was involved in the conflict. So sending South Africans to die for someone else's war, okay, I'll bite. What happened next? By the way, did anyone connect the dots between criticizing Russia and actually indirectly alienating China too? Because a friend of my friend is my friend, but an enemy of my friend is my enemy. So we could have made the situation very bad for us. Let's look at what the Chinese president did. Went to Russia, tiptoed the line between diplomacy and support without antagonizing NATO, without openly showing any support for the Russian president. Basically played it perfectly while we were running our mouths. But fine. Now let's fast forward to today, currently. this whole month has been a very interesting month. Basically, the last 3 months. So, old McDonald Trump basically decided to search for a smoking gun. Looked through South African politics, looked through South African media, social media, whatever, because we know he's a tweeter. He'll tweet. So, looked through all of that, found out that once upon a time, there was a song that was slightly problematic in terms of legality, and there were issues around farmers in South Africa. Farmers getting killed, and then basically took all of that. They killed the Boer song, a few farmers who got killed, and decided that South Africa was involved in a genocide against white farmers. Okay, we all know Trump is basically a 6-year-old with a lot of power. Decided that South Africa, among other countries like Canada, you can name a few, Brazil is currently on that list, were public enemy number 1. What does our president do in response to that? The man basically decided to quote Mugabe. He quoted Mugabe. Think about that for a second. He quoted the person whose country was basically sandpaper dildo fucked with sanctions. Check the value of the Zimbabwean dollar currently. How long ago were those sanctions implemented? What is the current value of the Zimbabwean dollar? That's who you wanna quote. That's the guy you wanna quote. I remember he basically said Donald Trump must keep his America and I will keep my South Africa, quoting Mugabe. How dumb can you possibly get? Wow. We all remember what Bush did to Zimbabwe with sanctions. And that's who our president decided to quote. And then in a fun development, this man decided, with his tail tucked between his legs, to undermine our diplomatic channels and open backdoor dialogues through Elon Musk, who basically is about as South African as Burger King at this point. Julius called him out on it in Parliament and he made a joke of it. Basically laughed it off like, after that tirade. No, it's not a tirade, you fuck. You were undermining DECO. You undermined the Department of International Relations and basically made yourself look like a fool. You made yourself look like a fool. It seems like you keep pressing the wrong button every chance you get, with a clear sign that says do not touch, and you keep pressing that button. Is it me, or does it seem to feel like the president is an acting president who is waiting for the real president to show up? Like, it seems like this job is not his job. Like, seems like he's holding it for someone else. And that's a bit problematic for me because, like, at every turn, he has shown that he has no spine, like no spinal bone. At every turn, with every decision that has been impactful, no spine. Remember the flag? Yeah. The flag that was supposed to cost millions. The guy just came out and said, hey, I told them to take this money that South Africans need desperately to create economic change was going towards a flag, a fucking flag. And to the president, this was a funny joke. So, You antagonize a bully and get into a dick swinging contest with someone who's wearing a sandpaper dildo. And then when it doesn't go your way, you tuck tail and open backdoor diplomatic channels. And then that fails. Where are we currently? Okay. So we are facing tariffs, 30%, I think, 30% tariff hike on all South African exports, or some goods, I believe. I think they've excluded certain goods that they need. But we are facing tariffs from the United States. And the president is going up and down with his tail tucked between his legs, begging the same person he was telling, keep your America, I'll keep my South Africa. So let's look at the implication of this man's decisions. Number one, once upon a time, he legalized marijuana. This, to someone with a vision and a plan, could have had economic implications, could have benefited the ordinary South African immensely. Retail licensing, production, distribution, byproducts, we skipped all of that and said, smoke it at your house. That's how far it went. Writing a bill into law that basically legalized expropriation of land without compensation. Let's review what that means. Normally in other countries, land expropriation basically looks something like this. The government basically has a project that runs in a certain area. Let's say maybe they're building a highway, and that highway happens to be passing through a place that has residents. The government can basically buy those residents out, demolish those houses, relocate those residents, and build the highway. That's land expropriation. Now, what dear Julius was campaigning for was land expropriation without compensation, which is basically land grabs. We saw how that turned out in Zimbabwe. While some of you might think that you will actually get land or benefit from land expropriation, as ordinary South African citizens, trust you will not. Trust. Maybe a few tokens for the cameras. Beyond that, dead ass, it's basically land for family members and friends of politicians. What would happen after that is the fall of South African farming, possibly mining, because that's land too, and a lot of other sectors. And the outcome would be a falling currency, possible starvation. So while you think you want land expropriation, trust you do not want it. But the president signed a bill, paper-thin bill, had no plan whatsoever for it, was planning to do absolutely nothing with it. It was just supposed to sit there and do nothing. Here is my problem with that. What happens when the next guy basically says, let me take a look at this bill and see what it entails and what I can do with it. It looks interesting. Let me see what can happen. Yeah, we'd be fucked. But let's move on from that. Our dear president decided to low-key sign into the constitution a bill that states that you as an individual out there in South Africa can campaign to be president. You no longer need a political party. No political party needed, you can campaign and become president. Sounds good, right? Yeah. Except we are in an open conflict with America. We are now engaged in an open conflict with America, a country that is basically a war vessel. That's their business motto, war. And there are three weapons that they use: war, guns, basically, Hollywood, to influence the optics, perspective, what people think, what people see. And then the third one, which is currently the one we are ducking, the one we are trying to avoid: sanctions. Now, best case scenario, America decides we are going to invest in an individual for a puppet. That's the best case scenario. That's if dear old McDonald Trump has some people behind him who have ambitions of taking over South Africa. They basically perform a coup without a single gun. Finance someone, change the narrative, and push that person into the South African political sphere. And trust, in as much as you think you would not vote for that person, in as much as you think that the ANC will rule forever, America has great ambitions, and that country, when it wants to achieve something, it will achieve it. This is a country that has been at war since before anyone could remember. Any significant war, America has almost always been involved in. So if they want to achieve something, it will be achieved. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is them having an air base, a military base, right next door to us. That seems problematic. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So let's basically take a look at what our president has done so far. Alienated allies. We can forget about counting on China in terms of economic aid if it ever comes to sanctions. There's nothing in it for them. There's nothing in it for them at all. It will basically be an antagonization of NATO or America or the UN or whoever America decides to send. So alienating allies both in Africa and outside of Africa. And then signing into law bills that basically could compromise the integrity of the South African public in terms of governance. Because in as much as you might think that America could not push an individual puppet into the highest office of this country, trust me, that country, when they put their mind to something, they can achieve it. Easily. They can achieve it. So with all of that being said, I guess what I am trying to say to our dearly beloved acting president is, you have Trump's attention. You have Uncle Sam's attention. Please give it back and be quiet. Please give it back, be quiet, and wait for the actual president, whoever it may be, because you seem to be an acting president. Every and any decision you've made has been under political pressure or has been reactionary. You have yet to make a decision that seems like your own. You have yet to make a decision that doesn't seem like it has been triggered by a reaction. So please give Uncle Sam's attention back, be quiet, wait for the actual president, whoever it may be. And in a nutshell, that's the problem with politics. That's the problem with democracy. The first guy might do some good. Second guy might intend to do some good and get removed. That guy might decide, yeah, I'm stealing. I'm taking whatever I can. Then the next guy might not even know what they're doing. And that is highly problematic because, in a nutshell, if you look at our president thoroughly, he seems like someone who doesn't know what they're doing. And the worst part is, it seems as if he's ignorant of the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing. It seems as if and that's someone dangerous. Someone who does not know that they don't know what they're doing. That's a dangerous person. His predecessor was stealing. That's it. He knew what he was doing. He was stealing. That's a problem, but not as bad as someone who doesn't even know that they don't know what they're doing. That's worse. That's the worst case scenario. That's the worst case scenario. This gentleman is swimming in murky waters full of sharks, and he's a freshwater fish. He's swimming in murky, sharky waters, and he's a freshwater fish. Please get out of that situation. Give dear old Donald Trump back his attention and be quiet. Sit still. Try not to move. And maybe, just maybe, we might escape the shitstorm that you have shoved us into. Anyway, please let me know what you think. If you have something to add, please go to the comment section. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what are your thoughts on this. Like, subscribe, share, comment. You know what to do. This is AV. You have been watching Disturbing the Peace. Thank you.